republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I wanted to mention for those of you who are not aware, that also occurred last Wednesday, 10 days ago, after some very serious illness. He was our attorney for 12 years. He's a great guy. He's a really lawyer. He's a really good guy. He was doing this kind of fraction of his normal hourly rate. He was a commercial contract owner and used to say that I was his attorney case, the streetcar. And that he would do it as long as I did. When I quit, he would have me quit too. So he kind of has me with it. But, and I'll learn to stay for a few minutes. I want to welcome Brian Greeno and Eddie Vance back on our board. We're really glad to have you back on the board, and you've been a real addition to it, and we really appreciate the fact that you come and participate. And I know Brian does too, but we're really glad to have you back. And we have a new board member, Mickey Jacob, who is been a friend of mine for a long time. I'm going to just read a little bit about him since HART was nice enough to create this for me. Mickey joined the HART board as a Pilfer County appointee in November of 2014. He's had an architectural career that spans more than 25 years, during which he has served as Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at BDG Architects, where he is currently as a since 2013. Prior to BDG, Mickey and his partners formed Urban Studio Architects, which was an architecture and interior architecture firm focused on sustainable design practices in a variety of types. It was a very successful firm, and many of the very best restaurants and assisted residential buildings came over design with this firm. And so that, it's kind of interesting because lawyers and planners often can't look at the results of their efforts, but when you're a good architect, that was there for quite a while. In addition to his volunteer service as Transportation Committee co-chair and board member of the Tampa Chamber, he served on a lot of boards, including the City of Tampa Creative Industries Council, the City of Tampa Economic Competitors Committee, the City of Tampa Arts Committee, the Partnership, and the Board of Creative Relations Committee. I might add that Mickey was in 2013 the president of the American Institute of Architects of the United States of America. It's a big deal, and I think that AIA probably has 30,000, 40,000 members. 85,000.
Each one of them has an opinion, and they all have my email address.
And so he had an opportunity to travel around the world speaking about architecture and urban design. He's very comfortable in Washington, and has actually made some presentations locally about what he learned in all the cities he went to. And at some point I'm going to ask him to do some version of that presentation for us that has to do with transit and urban places, which I would take transit lands in a lot of his photographs anyway, but it's a big deal. So we're really glad to have you on board. Okay, the approval of minutes. If you've read them, can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Motion is second. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Public input on agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak today? Okay. Let's move to the streetcar system.
Good afternoon. 99.9% of the contracted 2,134.5 trips for December. There were 11 late departures, on-time performance of 99.4. Streetcar delays were attributed to red signals at CSX interlock accidents and the loss of power over time. There were 2 accidents during the course of the month. One on Thursday, December 18th, streetcar traveling southbound at 2nd Avenue made contact with a van that violated the stop sign. Van driver was cited. And on Friday, December 19th, streetcar traveling south at Adamo, when a Ford Expedition made an illegal turn from Channelside onto Adamo going east, and made contact with the streetcar. On December 31st, we had an incident where a woman attempting to board the streetcar at Greco Plaza fell backwards and injured herself, and she was transported to Tampa General. She admitted to the supervisor that she was very intoxicated, so it was New Year's Eve. So, okay, we did one special service during the course of the month for a wedding party. They got married at the aquarium. We brought them to the aquarium and returned them back to Greco Plaza. And on December 31st, we had to provide extra service because of New Year's Eve. We extended service from 10 p.m. To 1 a.m. Convention years accounted for 0.1%, minimum amount of rides. All the trackway and interlocking inspections and maintenance were done during the course of the month. There were 13 wheelchair boardings with no reported problems, and we did 14 preventive maintenance A services on the streetcars. Any questions?
So does that mean everything's going all right?
I'm sorry?
Does that mean everything's going all right?
Yeah, everything's going all right. I mean, you know, when you're going south on Channel Side and you're going through Adamo, and then a car makes an illegal left in front of you, there's not much that we can do. 2nd Avenue remains a focal point for accidents because of that building there on the corner. The people don't even look at the stop sign, they just go through the stop sign looking left, and in order to view south to make the right, they're on the tracks already.
Right.
So, and we just had one the other day, the exact same thing. Exact same thing.
Could we put a sign watching the streetcar?
Well, we do have a sign, and we have the yellow flashing light, which is across the street from it, facing it. We've tried on a few occasions to get the city to change that to a red flashing light, but they won't do it.
Okay. Yes.
Earlier in the year, or last year I should say, we were talking about the track repairs that we could not see. I forgot what we called them exactly. The joint.
Yes.
How's that been progressing?
Oh, yeah, no, the essential ones have been repaired.
Okay. Are we still doing ongoing monitoring of it?
Oh, yeah, that's, we have a track inspector that walks the track daily. Every day before the start of service, he walks the entire line looking for such problems as that and the overhead. It's a requirement, we have to do it, you know, because we don't know what happened during the off time, you know, so.
So we think we found all the ones that need that major repair then?
Yes, we have addressed all the ones that were a major repair.
And then the other question, the lady that fell on December 31st, she wasn't getting on 435, was she? And it looked like 435 that bad.
No, yeah, no, it was, New Year's Eve was an interesting evening because at the same time that happened, I had a car that broke down right at Beneficial and Channel Side. So now I have a track blockage there, I have this other car, and it's 35 minutes before the fireworks go off. So we would kind of,
Did you repair it on site or did you have to tow it?
no, the mechanic came in. It wasn't anything that we could have done ourselves, you know, the normal check all the doors and things like that. It was a spring that broke on the inside of the line breaker. So there was nothing that the motorman could have done. It had to be a mechanic that came in to do it. No, we didn't have to tow it. That towing is always a last resort for us. But we got him out of the way. The lady was transported to THS and got that car going. And fireworks went off and everything was good, you know.
I have one more question about maintenance. I know that Philip has said several times before that there's some serious maintenance that's going to be done. And I know the city, and somebody to do a kind of evaluation of the track bed and the tracks and the stations. What's going on with that? Have you talked to the city? Is the city talking to you? Is there a game plan yet?
We've been in touch with the city about what, I mean, they take responsibility, they acknowledge that they have the ownership of the right of way, the ownership of the track. I think that was the major issue accomplished last year was a sense of ownership. We'll come back with a more formal presentation. Let's do this. Let's come back next month for a more formal presentation. I have the mayor's office is requesting a meeting so we can talk about streetcar information and I can get that covered in there. And then come back with something that has been as high as we can get it and get an update on here's where we're going, here's where we need to go. We will, maintenance on the cars will start impacting our finances because about 2 years ago we started capitalizing a lot of quarter life maintenance on the cars. And as that gets resolved, more of the maintenance will hit our operating budget, so we may see a change with the hourly cost in the next few years. So we'll absorb that. We can get you that information too.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And we do have monthly meetings with the city and the safety department here at HART, myself, the manager of maintenance, and we meet and we discuss places along the line that you know, maybe, or can we do this, can we do that? You know? So we do meet on a monthly basis with the city.
Good, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, let me introduce David Smolder, who is the senior partner of Smolder Hardware. I've lost the other names in the firm, David.
Schlosser, Roland, Hines.
Schlosser, and Dick was one of his senior partners. And David has asked to sit in and take over for Jack. And I've known him for many years. He's a great owner as well and is interested in what we do. And there's a culture at Smoker Board supporting the streetcar. Given what I keep hearing in the press, who knows how long our board is going to be around. So I don't see any point really in doing a search for a new firm. I'd like the board to agree to stay Smoker Board, but stay engaged in that search more become a trend discussion.
I'll make a motion to continue with the existing firm, and no need to go further with the search.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you. That's a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Nice to have you. The chair's report, I can't remember if I got the report, but we have been really busy with the CSX insurance new proposal. And I think we have something to show you today. So, and which may require some action since the current insurance expires, I think, February 1st. So I'd like to introduce Greg Melnick, who we've been working with, he and his team, and some of the Bartlett lawyers, Catherine, Harvest manager, and HART attorneys, and the CNA's manager. We've had everybody in the loop, and I think we have an approach that will surprise you. Okay?
I got some things to pass on. Those ones.
Yeah, just,
Okay, the hot topic typically for HART and THS. As Michael said, we have been working on this for 6 months now. And first is let me start by thanking you for this opportunity. Again, we've been working hard on this. I think you're going to be very pleased with what we have been able to put together. This has, by all means, been a joint teamwork operation between THS, HART, and the city. And that said, let me go ahead into my presentation. Good afternoon, Board of Directors, and thank you for your time today. I am pleased and honored to present to you a proposal for a railroad liability insurance program that we have been able to procure for the Streetcar. This program is cleaner, more efficient, and will save THS, HART, and the city of Tampa at least 20%. On a more personal note, I would like to thank THS, HART, and the city of Tampa for allowing this opportunity to provide you with a commercial insurance proposal. You know, there's a true renaissance going on in Tampa, and I commend all of you for allowing a qualified business to come in and try to solve some of the problems. As a small business owner, it is refreshing to see our city leaders and third parties actively work together to make Tampa a better place. That said, if you could go ahead and please turn to page 3 of the commercial insurance proposal. Essentially how this program is broken down, it's broken down into 5 layers. And what that means is that you have 5 different insurance companies going ahead and insuring the total of $100 million in limits as dictated per the CSX indemnity agreement. What we've done here is, just on the basis of the current program, is we've taken first initially an apples to apples approach, so you can see the current savings and what we've done. The first layer is Indian Harbor Insurance Company, also known as XL Insurance Company. They go ahead and they insure the primary $25 million, which is essentially your first layer of liability and limits. And also, please, if you have any questions, please tell me to slow down. Sometimes I get too technical. Out of that, your deductible, your self-insured retention is $100,000, and this is per occurrence. And your policy aggregate limit is $50 million. The terms and conditions, essentially, again, this is all kind of dictated by CSX and by some of the operating agreements in place. So we went ahead and made sure that we have met those agreements and everything matches up. The second layer is with Great American Insurance Company. This is an admitted carrier, which technically, rule of thumb is if you can always place it with an admitted carrier, please do. We were actually very surprised that they wanted to play in the railroad liability markets, and this being able to obtain them as a carrier is an absolute windfall. Basically, their occurrence level is $25 million, excess of $25 million. And so what that means is you have your first layer, the Indian Harbor, which we just talked about. You then have your second layer, which is Great American. So they're essentially second in line to insure the entire spectrum of the $100 million. Railroad liability layer 3, this is Steadfast Insurance Company. These guys were originally on the program. And what we discovered is whenever you have large limits like this in different carriers, if you rearrange the puzzle pieces, you can kind of go ahead and realize price savings. So what we did is we basically kicked them out of slot 2 and put them in slot 3, and we're actually able to save a decent amount off of the price per million for each carrier. So even though they were on the program last year, they were the second layer, we moved them to the third layer, and it helped us on pricing. We also changed their limits of liability, and again, as we just spoke about the first 2 layers, the first 2 layers are combined for $50 million. This third layer is $10 million excess of 50. So now basically you're now currently, as we've showed, insured up to $60 million. Railroad liability layer number 4, Arch Specialty. Arch has also been on the program. They were originally the third layer last year. We kicked them out and moved them to 4th. And rather than doing a $25 million aggregate, we did a $15 million. Because it was just cheaper on pricing. And essentially, if you put this layer, the last one we just spoke about, if you put them in force, that creates $25 million. Because the last layer was 10, this one's now 15. Finally, the last layer, this is a new carrier to the current program, the Star Surplus Lines. Star Surplus Lines is owned by the old CEO of AIG, which I'm sure we all are aware of AIG. We all kind of owned them at one point, personally. But they're the last layer that went ahead and decided to play in this game. Their occurrence level is they're 25 million, excess is 75 million. So what this means is this is the last layer, and this brings you up to $100 million in limits to essentially complete the program. So what does all this mean with what we've been able to do to rearrange the layers, to rearrange the program, and the work we've done? What this means is that THS, HART, and the city, off of the program that we have proposed currently, will save at least 20%. The total reduction in premium will be from $398,701 to $316,653. Again, I cannot reiterate how pleased that we've been able to come in and offer you something where you can essentially save more than 20% of what's perennially been a fixed cost for THS, for HART, for the city. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, Chair. Fortunately, in my profession, living in the world of liability insurance. I have a question on occurrences because as I'm reading this right now, your layer one provider with a $25 million occurrence has a policy aggregate of $50,000, and the other four, as I understand it, their aggregate are just what their occurrence limit is.
That is correct.
So, as I understand this, for instance, if we had a claim that was $50 million, the first two would cover it, correct? And if we had another claim, would that go back to the layer one, or would layers 3 and 4 come in? In other words, you'd still have $25,000 available, or $25 million available in layer one. So if a second claim was in that same year, because I assume this is an annual aggregate.
That's correct.
Would that revert back to layer one, and their remaining amount in the aggregate start to cover that second claim, or would it go to 3, 4, and 5 automatically? How would that work?
Excellent question. Basically, the answer to your question is, let's do it simple. Let's say we have the first two layers. We know they're defined at, per occurrence, they're defined at $50 million max. So in your scenarios, let's say we have a first claim that's $45 million. So that's obviously under the $50 million threshold, the first two layers. So essentially, as that claim is paid, and then we have another category, then we have another claim, it would go ahead and revert back to layer one, because it's not, since the claim didn't pierce layers 3, 4, and 5, it would then now revert back to one. I think a simple approach to understand, I think really the question you're asking is how much liability limits do we have, is we have the full $100 million, which has been required of us under this proposal. But then if we were to have a second catastrophic claim, the limits of liability would essentially only have, we spoke about this today, we only have an additional $25 million just from that first layer. It's, again, it's an excellent question, but yeah, we essentially would have $125 million, understanding that we'd have 2 catastrophic losses.
And piggybacking off of that, so in the example of a $50 million claim, the first $25 million is one layer one, second $25 million is one layer two. Then if we get a $30 million second claim that year, the $25 million goes back to layer one, but then is layer three now coming into the picture because layer two maxed out?
So you're asking if we had essentially 3 catastrophic claims that pierced the first 2 layers?
In my example. The first one's 50 million, so 25 from layer one, 25 from layer two. Therefore, now layer two is done for the year. So if there's now on a second occurrence, and let's say it's 30 million, I guess. Now layer one reverts back. We finish off their 25 million, and now we're at layer three going into their portion of it.
That's an excellent question, because since layer 2 has been exhausted, the question is, would the third layer go ahead and revert back? That would probably be played out in court. My answer to that is, I would say yes, because since everything's on a follow form basis. So meaning essentially, if you have a gap between layers 1 and 3, then you would want to go ahead and assume that layer 3 would come back into play after that second layer had been exhausted. And let me explain why this is because this isn't really a difference between the last program that we found. The last program, and I mentioned earlier in my proposal that this is cleaner. The reason why this is cleaner is we kind of found your question. We found that throughout the old program, but we found it in potentially more detrimental ways because it was on a quota share basis, which a quota share is essentially two barriers coming together to build up one layer.
In the same layer.
Yeah, within the same layer. And the reason why that's problematic is because if it doesn't fit together perfectly, or if you have different layers to this, you could essentially just kick out that entire layer. So when we say this is cleaner, what we've done is we removed the quota share component of this and just built the layering and tower straight up and down.
Not that I anticipate anything, just
If you're going to have a catastrophic claim, only have one.
Sure. That's fine.
The self-insured retention per occurrence, is that, in other words, what was that, how do you read that?
That is exactly correct.
Okay, so just the first layer has $100,000 and the other 11 see layers?
That is correct.
Okay, so,
The reason why is because what they're all follow form is really when this policy would kick in, and well, let's just say you have a $25 million loss, you essentially be paid $24.9 million.
Yes.
Brent, there was a lot of discussion previously about covering the entire line or just the crossing. Could you clarify that for us in this proposal?
Absolutely. What we discovered in our research in doing this is that currently the entire line is covered. Which, and Dave, I have to ask you to come in on this, and also Michael Stevens from HART, is that what we understand from the indemnity agreement is that wasn't necessarily supposed to be the case. So as I said earlier, what we're doing is we're showing you an apples-to-apples basis as the entire line is being covered. There's currently an option that we're waiting to receive on the table from the first layer, to whereas we would restrict coverage to the interlock only, which it would appear was the intent of the CSX indemnity agreement. Would you mind clarifying that, David?
Yes. The CSX agreement requires that the insurance cover the crossing, and that's it. And the crossing is legally defined, and we did find a survey and a legal description of the crossing.
Excellent.
So it is a defined area. I'm not an insurance expert, but my assessment of what this policy is about is really to ensure CSX's system in the event that there's some kind of problem at the crossing. Now, the current policy insures the entire 2.7 mile rail system for the streetcar. And as an instrumentality of a political subdivision of the state of Florida, in this case the city, THS enjoys sovereign immunity up to the limited caps provided by the legislature, which is $200,000 per person, $300,000 per event. So the question is, why do we need a policy that's insuring the entire line? And our legal obligation to CSX is simply to ensure that crossing and what could happen if there's an event at the crossing. So and what it boiled down to is there's no reason to open ourselves up to further claims on the rest of the system up to the limits of $100 million for any number of reasons. One is we may be paying for more risk than we really need to pay for. The second is that you're now in a situation where, in theory at least, you could have the intent of the agreement, which is really to ensure CSX's system diluted by other claims elsewhere in the system, cannibalizing policy limits. So, there's a number of factors that we've identified which we think would militate towards not insuring the entire system. We have a general public risk policy, which does cover certain things that occur on the rest of the system as a $2 billion policy. So the discussion centered around whether or not we really needed to have the entire system covered under the CSX $100 million policy. Ultimately, it's a business decision that you all would need to make. But from our vantage point, as a lawyer assessing risk, we're not sure it makes a lot of sense to be insuring the entire system of the CSX policy.
And we believe we patched it out with HART, the city, the world, however it happened,
So if I understand, and good explanation, thank you. If I understand, then there's a possible further reduction that can be considered in the future.
No, well, probably what I would like you to do is authorize me to execute a contract, but we want to execute a contract that restricts it to the crossing, and that Grant doesn't think it's a lot of reduction, but it could be $10,000 or $11,000.
Yeah, it could be, we believe, if the carrier will do it. We did have a pleasant conversation with the program manager yesterday about it. But if they will agree to it, we believe savings will be between $10,000 and $15,000, which is still substantial because that could potentially put our annualized cost decrease of over 25% from what you're currently paying. So what this shows is this proposal is currently how everything as it is insured. It's essentially apples to apples from a coverage basis, showing a 20% decrease. And then if we can get the carrier to agree to restrict coverage to the interlock only, we probably realize an additional $10,000 to $15,000 in savings.
To pay your fee.
Right. I've asked her that the 398 for the existing policy. I'm almost certain that number is significantly higher than that, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does as a matter of years, but I'm really impressed with what they've done. Grant has been very, very diligent and persistent, and he has a colleague in his company who is a rail insurance. It's just been astounding to listen to. Catherine and I can see them in the conversations and they would make it. I'm really impressed. I would like to think that at our next meeting, we can discuss how to put the savings directly into operations. And so, Catherine, okay, so is there any, Sean, do you have any questions or do you want to make a motion?
I was going to make a motion to authorize the president to continue negotiations and make a decision on the insurance.
Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased.
Thank you.
Still, and as Grant said to me recently today, it's still a ridiculous amount of money, but it's not ridiculous. Thank you very much, Grant. We will circle back and do a calendar level and get this finished.
Sure, and one last thing, so to clarify, everyone's intent is to bind coverage as is until we get notice about the interlock. So,
We
great.
have to do that because the place is kind of
Listen, thank you for your business. It's been an absolute pleasure, and again, pleased to save the board, THS, and HART 20%. Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, let's move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we move off the topic of CSX, I see what you're just earlier talking. Michael, did you have any comments, maybe we need to add to the conversation about the CSX insurance?
No, I think Michael Stevens, Chief Business Enterprise and Safety Officer, Grant covered it very thoroughly. I mean, it is a tremendous reduction in the current premium that we're receiving. We're still working on the end-of-life issues, and I think everybody's on the same sheet of music.
Thanks so much for your help.
Thank you, and Jeff and I have been writing back and forth, so he's been harassing his staff and emailing him. Thank you for me, Jeff, thank you. In fiscal 13, our actual cost for CSX insurance was right at $400,000. In 14, we budgeted at $444, and this budget year stands at $426. So it looks like, and I'm going to get this wrong, Jeff, so correct me, but with the budgeted number of $426 for this year, as presented for right now, it looks like nearly $100,000 of savings. We will have to get together with our compatriots at the city to make sure that we're tacking on the appropriate taxes and fees. But once we get closer to that dollar amount, we'll go ahead and share that. And that is relevant with a lot of the conversations which have been going on about if Streetcar could own them. There's a lot of press right now that if Streetcar could own them. And the cost of this insurance has been a sticking point, and there has been a sense conveyed to us at many more meetings that if only you could find a way to make that insurance be cheaper, there may be more community support for investment in the Streetcar, because there would be more of a sense of looking at it like a business or investing where can we go. So to Mr. English's previous point, if there were $100,000 available within your budget, that would give the Streetcar Board opportunities to make some different investments. We can talk, I think we also have in here to discuss the ridership and return from the cruise ship Liability. That was a German cruise ship that came in about 2 weeks ago. Mr. English authorized service starting 3 hours earlier. It looks like we carried over 1,000 extra trips because of those 3 hours. Now, there is no money for that at this point, and so the costs as outlined in the THS contract, the bill to THS from HART will be about $1,000 more for that interim. So again, $100,000 of savings would let you serve 100 cruise ships. Not to put it too much like that, but you do have opportunities to have a bank of hours for additional service, or you can have an opportunity to say that Sundays are fare free if you would like to do something like that. So a couple of options. The board gives us some direction. We can structure some things for your consideration for February.
I think it's a great opportunity because it's basically a windfall. And, particularly interested in Sean's opinion and your opinion to do with the CRAs and yours to do with prevention stuff. What would help? We can't fix everything with $100,000. So what could we spend it on that would be meaningful and have an impact? So think about it.
I just want to get clarification. I know we budgeted 426, but that, wouldn't it be retro to the number of remaining months? Actually, or would it be proportional to the number of remaining months? Rather than 100,000, it would seem like we're all 5 months into the year, so we wouldn't get a full 100,000 back, or say 100,000, I should say.
Well, let us clarify, because we would have to see how we're booking the expense. It may be that when we renew in February, we pay the whole shebang.
We do. You're right, Chad.
So it's not that we're hitting it incrementally for the year, it's that the expenses is occurring in booking there. Sounds like that's the case, but and our CFO says yes, so that seems to be the case. So it is indeed a one-time expenditure, which is low.
Good question. Any others? Anything else you'd like to discuss?
Well, I will take this that you are comfortable that we'll provide a couple of options and bring you back a buffet to say here's where we can go for some of these things. We also now have an opening on the board. We have HART does the election of officers in their January board meeting, and Councilman Suarez, as you notice, is not at the board meeting. He is no longer part of the board, so you have an opening for the vice president position. And for the board to take action, you have a couple of options. You can leave the position open. You can take a vote to make sure you can go ahead and fill it, or you do the filling of your offices in March. So if you leave the position open, you would be vice president free, so you can't get sick, you can't go anywhere.
Well, if I were here, our secretary
Can step up to do that. So that's the opportunity you have to leave.
I don't really care whatever you all want to do. We're going to elect the officers in a couple of months anyway, in 2 meetings, or 2 or 3 meetings. So what do you think?
I think last year we had the same thing, and we just went without a position. Is that correct? Am I remembering right? That's correct.
It's a pleasure of the board.
we kind of had a similar discussion in regards to HART, and obviously there was a lot more power in there. But I think it'd be good for us to solicit interest as to, does anybody have an interest to be the treasurer, the vice president, the president, just to see. I don't remember exactly how we did it here last year.
Well, that's exactly what we did. We said
Okay.
electronic form, and others may nominate you yourself. And on this sort of February or March.
Did we get those prior? Were we able to actually see those prior to vote? Okay.
It's all summarized. And we'll do that again this year.
And it went to the nominating committee, which then picked, I think I chaired it, not this time, but 2 times before.
Well, probably next month we'll create another nominating committee.
I did have one.
Yeah.
Going back to any savings that we have, I don't know if you recall, last year, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in, but last year when we were talking about the residents of the CRA area, I had brought up the expense to them to write, and I know we offer them a package, so I would like to maybe see if there's anything else we can consider for the residents of the CRA to encourage them to use the trolley more. I think we had 20 rides for a certain price.
Let us put together some type of option that really administratively the thing which has always been problematic is how to get that reduced pass into somebody's hands. And CRAs would be, of course, required with the residents, since we have to mail in. Taking that into consideration, we could do something where it's ride free for this month, or we're sending a free card for the remainder of the year for folks who are interested in that. Let us put our minds around some administrative structure for that, and we'll include that as an option. Thank you. It doesn't, if you're taking that. So just again, briefly, we've Streetcar been in the news, so you get some news clips. Yesterday, the Port Board had an interesting conversation. I was not there, so I would refer everybody back to coverage in the Times. Comments coming up from the different Port Board members and also the mayor's office. So it is an interesting time. It's a good time. It is a nice feeling from our staff perspective that folks.
Said, Mr. Vinnick is going to be participating, so hopefully any revenue that we're missing out on in the first part of the year, we will more than make up for that as the year goes by. We are going to get a couple of Red Bull wraps for the month of March, so we'll have some on books next month. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we have an action item, approval of the streetcar waiver release and identification agreement to allow alcoholic beverages for consumption during the streetcar charter service. Mr. Stevens.
Good afternoon. Before you have the resolution of the item that the board directed that legal counsel prepare, which is the indemnification agreement for any charge to allow the consumption of alcoholic beverages on the streetcar. Jessica Swan from David's office and I reviewed and cobbled together this agreement, which is attached for your review. We believe that it's legally sufficient and it carries out the needs and the wishes to be able to allow that beverage service. It also satisfies the requirements of our insurers as well to make sure that we have strong indemnification package.
That's great. I'm happy with this. Any questions? Mr. Stevens? I haven't hashed it out. We really appreciate it. If not, I'd like a motion to approve this agreement, so our marketing staff can keep marketing. So moved in a second. Third. Any other discussion?
I had a question, just
Oh,
for
yeah.
clarification. This is the organizer of the event is the one who signs this, and this is not each individual person signs something.
That's correct. It's the organizer of the event, so that person is taking responsibility ultimately for the terms and conditions of the agreement. From our side, it is THS with a representative from THS, as well as HART. That's a change that I made, particularly since we were talking about this CSX interlock issue. I wanted to make sure that HART was expressly captured in the agreement as an indemnity.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion about it? Aye. Good. Okay. Okay, discussion item, THS rates extra service from private firm outside of regular service hours.
I know that's about that. What is that? This actually comes up from the German cruise item. When someone charter service from THS, a charter rate per hour is close to about $225. And when that service runs outside of the base, HART bills THS, the billable rate here of $79, about $80 an hour. So the delta there between the $80 that we are billing THS and what THS is collecting from the charter is money coming back to THS. Right now, your base rate it's lower than what it costs HART to actually operate the service. Anything outside of base is overtime. We have different staffing requirements that impact that. But if we provide something for the port, as was requested, the only thing that we have that we bill is this outside of base rate. And if we've been speaking to the porter and want to make THS whole for that service, you're getting back exactly what we're billing you. So for your consideration is adjusting the outside of regular service hour rate. So if we're providing service to another entity, it's not a charter, it's the extra service. It's okay, we run that. You're recouping a little more than the cost actually is to you. Did I get that right, Jeff? Okay, good. And then Jeff and Peter worked together on the math, applying the same multiplier of this compared to
charter. To charter service. HART charges THS $117 for the hour. You get $225 an hour for a charter. So we took the same variable between the $79 an hour and the same percentage increase from the 117 to 225 that you was done, and we thought that would be an applicable charter rate. What's happened is because of the German cruise lines and us starting early, we've had private entities come to us and say, hey, we would like you to start the streetcar service early. And all we actually have on the books is the rate that we would charge THS, because in the past, like for New Year's Eve extension, that was a THS approved. No private entity asked us to extend service, it was THS. So the only rate that we had was the rate that we would charge THS, which was $79. But now we have outside private entities coming to us and requesting to start service early, and we don't have a rate to charge them. All we have is the rate to charge THS.
So the staff recommendation would be for the board to consider adopting a rate that you charge for non-chartered outside of base service to entities.
For non-chartered?
Non-chartered, this would be, we would just start, just like we did for the cruise ships. We sold tickets, we started service early. I'll give you what brought this all to light. There is a convention coming to the convention center. They all want to stay over here in the hotel across the street. They've come to us and said, hey, can you start service early? And when they asked us that, we realized that the only rate that we have on the books is the rate that we charge THS. So the only reward that THS would be getting to starting the service early would be the fares. And we thought that was not,
Did you charge the German?
no, sir, we charged you.
You charged us.
But they pay fares.
But they paid fares, yes.
You charged us, but they did pay fares.
Yes, they did.
So,
And we always decrement those fares back.
and there were 1,200 of them, and so that's a significant amount.
There's another one, the 28th of this month also. that
Well,
you may
and we
want
wanted to
consider.
talk about it, and I guess this is the time to
This
do
is
it.
probably roll it all together. The fare recovery information we had for the German cruise, the Liability, we had a certain amount of money recorded from the fare boxes, and we had a certain amount recorded from the TVNs. We've been working on some polling issues within the TVNs.
Yes.
So our TVNs collected all the data, but they weren't telling us ahead of time, so we're figuring out that. What we saw initially was, I think, a delta compared to 2 weeks previously of about $250, but we've been doing more analysis of what an average Wednesday fare recovery was, but we still don't have that done because we're pulling the information back. We did not receive, the cost of the Admininstration that we billed to THS was $1,060. We didn't get an additional $1,000 in fares. So we did not.
$1,200, didn't you?
Depending on how many trips they took back and forth.
Well, one round trip is $5.
One round trip is, but if somebody's, but if they're alighting at, we definitely didn't get 75. And we don't get that for Gasparilla either. I mean, if they're alighting down at Channelside and they purchase a day pass and then they come up to Kadrish and they get off and walk around Eagle and hop another trip. And we are again dealing with a cruise coming from a population group that's a lot savvier about their transit use. So we also had folks who were doing, oh, I'm a senior, I can pay $1.25 and I'll walk back. We had a lot of folks walking. So we did not. There we go.
They were very transit savvy. They were very transit savvy. They knew if you got on the car going that way, it's got to come back. You know.
Okay, so I'm still not sure.
I mean, what you're suggesting is that THS create a rate, because you have your two choices right now. Extra service, you can charge somebody for a charter, or we can look at booking a rate, which is non-charter. So again, charters are closed doors, charters are for specific window. We have to very narrow.
The difference between a charter and a non-charter is anybody can get on a non-charter?
A non-charter is right, open access to the public. It's just running regular service outside of normal, regular operating hours.
And you charge about $79?
We charge THS $79 and change per car.
Per car?
Per car.
For 3 hours?
Per 1
Per
hour.
hour? Huh?
Per hour.
Per hour?
Yes.
So the recommendation is for the board to discuss, not necessarily to take action, but to discuss if you anticipate more requests like this. And it was very successful, I anticipate that we will have that. We would recommend that you have a discussion on, do you want to create a mechanism that's more than just the $79 cost to go to using the same multiplier we use on charter over what that cost is to THS, allow you to introduce additional service in a way that's not a charter and recoup a little extra money back to THS, make some money off of it.
What do you think?
I think we should, personally. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think you're going to probably have more opportunities with convention groups as they come along. I have to put on my convention director's hat, though, for just a second.
Okay.
And my concern is, and it's a question to you because I don't know how it works. If I have a event at the convention center and we need additional stagehands, union labor to come in 2 to 3 hours earlier in the morning, say they were normally scheduled for 10 and they did an hour of service between 8 and 9. So then we had a void between 9 and 10, the regular service. So I don't know that the charge, in your case, with your union drivers and stuff, you have to bring them in for 4 hours at a time? I don't know the rules.
So we have a minimum call out of 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So I have to, if I'm going to put 3 cars out there, like in regular service, I have to bring in 3 motormen plus 1 standby motorman. The mechanics are already here because they start at 8 a.m. anyway. But I have to bring in a minimum of 4 motormen to cover those 3 cars. Most of the time, what's the easier and the cheaper, and I haven't spoken to this gentleman that wants to extend the service, is the charter service. Because in the charter service, you know, I can do a couple of trips inside of 1 hour and possibly get all of the people that he wants to down there at the appropriate time. But if he wants us to run extended service before the hours, I have to run the 3 cars. That is extended service, the 3 cars. And I have to charge the people for a fare. Whereas with the charter,
You don't have to.
we don't charge.
Yeah. Well, my question, Mr. Chairman, then would be, if we go to an hourly rate, do we also need to have a minimum number of hours that we charge to go with that hourly rate to cover our expenditure of bringing in a driver? Am I making sense in what I'm asking? Okay.
This probably is a good conversation to have so our operator's agreement is coming up for renewal yet again, so later this year. And that's a good time let's tee it up now, but have that conversation because Again, we only bill over to THS the service you have on the rail. So the things Pete was observing of the minimum call-in, et cetera. If we put out 1 extra hour of service, but we have to call folks in, HART is eating the overtime cost. HART is eating all of this. THS is paying for the hour. So as we go to as we were talking about the operator's agreement, we need to retool what those costs are and come up with another mechanism to catch that. It takes a little bit of math to make sure we're grabbing everything. And for the amount of service that we anticipate being requested to add, I don't think we're at the point that it makes sense to go through that rigorous analysis. But since we have to do that for the renewal anyhow to set fair rates, we would really like to catch that there. Because again, when somebody you don't have a very large pool of motormen, and you have taken the number of motormen on your books down to keep your costs down over the years. You might have 7 pieces of work and you have 8 motormen, but we always build a number of extra spots. So you've got an extra spot, which for instance is always filled in by a bus driver working overtime. And so that's just an additional cost that HART is absorbing and not defraying over to you. And it's just we don't have a large enough, there's not enough work to justify a really big workforce. So we do need to come back and true these costs up as we are renewing agreements here.
I know I present it to our clients either or. If it runs adjacent to their regular scheduled time that we had planned, and the two connect, so to speak, we just charge them on an hourly basis for the additional time. However, if we bring them in on a time that's not scheduled and they're not connecting times, then we have a 4-hour minimum, and we explain that to the client. That's what it costs me to bring the union labor in to do this, and they don't come out for less than a 4-hour call. So, and give the client that option. And normally what they will do is extend the hours of their normally scheduled service. So,
yeah, I think it's important to get to the bottom of this. There's no reason why you should be eating any cost.
it should quote for itself.
I don't think it matters so much if we make money on it, to be honest with you. I think that as our budget gets increased, it's going to be less incumbent on this board to worry about. I think the bottom line is that you need to create a system that gives the client an option of 2 decent deals.
Yeah.
Whatever the board desires, I mean,
Well,
but if we could discuss the cruise ship,
today, this is very confusing.
it was just it's a discussion.
Then why don't next month we have a real, why don't you put some ideas together and show us these numbers? I'm a little confused because of them.
We have another German cruise ship coming in.
We do, it hasn't decided, we should probably decide today, but that's January 28th.
28th.
Can I ask a question, Michael? I'm trying to follow this as a newbie today. When we're saying about the extended service, for the charge for the extended service, do we actually charge the people that request the extended service that charge to use it? I mean, I'm confused when you're saying you're paying for this, we pay for that, and I'm not sure who the we is with what the discussion's going on.
Well, I think what we did with the port, see, we have had an agent contribution with the port until recently. And when the executive director turned over, he didn't like the idea, so they said no last year. And we're being jerked out this year. And at one time, it was $250,000 a year, and it's $150,000, anyway. But Catherine gave them a lot of ideas about ways that we could provide service, extra service, if they had events at night or early cruise ships. And so their market director called and said, okay, how about it? We've got a German cruise ship coming in, and they're interested in the board, and they're interested in the streetcar. So I guess what we did was, well, I don't know exactly what we did, but we charged them something, and we didn't charge the port anything. We charged ourselves something, and then the people paid to ride the streetcar, which in my mind is not necessarily the best approach, but it was the only approach you had. And so the question is, do we do that again until we sort this out?
Right, that's the question, because it costs THS an additional $1,000 somewhat.
Yeah, I get calls all the time for free passes, and I'm not more than happy to. I mean, back in the day, we didn't do this, but we do now. I have no idea what account is coming out of, to be honest with you. I feel like I've got an account that isn't bottomless, but I don't know what the balance is in that account. So it's coming out of our budget someplace. And whether it's free rides and Igor, or free rides for a school, or free rides for the German people, you know, I think we just need to get if the court, and one of the things that Catherine said at the court board meeting where we pitched it when I was left, if you give us $100,000 for whatever, one of the things we can do is create 4 hours that you've already paid for, and we'll set that money aside. So if you want to just run early, fine, just run early. And it's paid for. You run late, fine. You have a big event, fine. We'll just, you know, we have the money, so we'll run. That's, at the end of the day, that's what the transit systems are supposed to do. If we're funded correctly, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's it. So, what do we do on the 26th? And I think there's another one shortly thereafter.
Every 3 weeks.
Right.
There are 4 more cruise ships coming in. There were 6 in the cycle. And then, to Michael's point, we received an email from port staff at about 3 p.m. the Sunday before the cruise ship was to dock. And Steve Rosenstock was on top of it by about 8:05 on Monday morning. And the question was, you know, the Streetcar board obviously can authorize service, but we've not had the situation of people saying, hey, how do we get it without? We get the phone calls of how much will it cost? We get the phone calls of, will you? The response is yes, and it will cost X. And somebody pays, they pay. What made this more unique circumstances, our residents and our businesses in Igor have been paying for Streetcar for 12 to 13 years, and not having those tourists come up there represented to them a lost business opportunity. So it was you in the middle. You have your Igor supporters who've been paying for this service for years who want the service, but you have the folks at the port who have not contributed for the past 2 years requesting the service to be run, and you have a very finite budget. So the end result is the cost that will be billed to you from HART for the service is about $1,000. Fares will pick up part of it. Perhaps if we are able to let the tourists know it more with advance notice, maybe we'll see more tourists.
Well,
$1,000 is...
Let me ask a question. If you were going to do a charter, did it run from 9 to
noon.
To noon.
9 to noon, right? So what does it cost you? What's a charter, 9 to noon?
Well, charter's $2.25 an hour per car.
So $650
Times 3.
So it would cost the port about 20, whatever that is, right?
But, and that's why I'm telling, that's why if we had an outside of service rate, it would be cheaper
Then a charter.
than a charter, yes.
And the number that we're using is,
Currently, the only number we have is the number that we charge THS, not a number that we would charge an outside entity.
right. So with outside entities, until this point in time, you just use.
We haven't had any.
Use the charter rate. You just, they pay for charter.
Well, yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Okay.
And the only time we've extended service at the behest of the THS board, New Year's Eve fell on a Wednesday. Traditionally, we do the fireworks down in Channel Side. We would get the people down there and bring them back. So we had to extend service from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m.
What's the hourly rate we pay?
Regular service, 117.
That's what we pay.
Yes, sir.
So why aren't we, and does 117 cover your cost?
Well, that's what we're charging you. And once again, you run into a situation, well,
Just-
outside, we would be charging you 79 and charging them 117, if that's what you're saying.
I didn't hear that right. You're charging us.
For outside of regular service hours. If I have an extra car out there,
Before or after?
before or after, we charge THS $79.
Doesn't cover your cost.
Not our cost, no.
Oh, that's, okay. So, yeah. So
And the only thing THS recuperates from that is whatever goes into the fare box.
Okay. You charge us that, we pay you, it covers your cost, or doesn't, as the case may be, and we just get the fair cost.
Correct.
That's for special, after hours, before hours, service.
Either or.
And the 117 is for charters?
117 is what we charge you for regular service
Oh, okay. That's what we pay today for regular service, per car.
per car. If we do a charter, within inside of regular service hours, we charge THS 117, but THS recuperates 225.
So that's what the outside entity pays.
Correct.
So what could we put together today
And what I
that
was,
you could pitch to the board?
well, what Jeff and I had discussed was the same percentage difference between the 117 and the 225 applied to the $79 figure,
Would be a number of,
which would be a number of about 120 an hour for an outside entity.
And what is your cost? Your actual cost?
We can only charge THS what we've already agreed to, which is outside of regular service, the $79. Okay, until that gets renegotiated at the next
But
time.
what's the true expense to do it?
The expense, as we have put it together, the outside of base cost is pretty much a legacy item, and I could not tell you what the relationship is between that and covering the full cost. I will say that the full cost we book is at $117 an hour. Streetcar has very high fixed costs, so electric is electric, right? And regardless, there's not a lot of incremental savings to be realized. So when we put everything together, what is actually spent every time that goes into maintenance, how much it paid for the operators on average for the year, we end up, it's backwards in budgeting, but we take what we spent last year, project for divide it. The 117 is pretty close to a true cost. Most of the requests for additional service we get are at the end of the day. So we start picking up the overtime costs if somebody's working at the end of their hour. We usually do not have a full mechanic complement here in the evening. So our costs are a little bit lower because of personnel costs of running a streetcar later in the evening. So having the folks out there who are operating, you might not have a full mechanic staff. You have a supervisor who would be there anyhow.
But the motor getting over.
The motormen are definitely getting overtime. But we have not, again, when we did the operators agreement, and subsequent to that, in the intervening years, HART absorbed more of the cost of the budget. So when the operating agreement started, Pete's entire cost was in the hourly cost that was going over to THS. And now I believe Pete is 100% in the HART budget.
Yes.
And so it's helped us control the cost on that, but so HART is now absorbing more costs. And we have cut back on the number of motormen that we built into your budget, but we still cover the service, just we're covering
You
it.
got the skin down. Probably.
But $117 is a close approximate.
117, we're comfortable with 117. Somebody came in here and made a pitch to take it over for justice service. 117, I wouldn't give them the squinty eye. 79, I think they were lying. I'd be pretty sure they were duct-taping the cars back together and be able to play multimeters. And clearly we're not doing that. So there is a lot which HART has absorbed it, in goodwill.
How about this one? How about if it's one that's Catherine and I figure this out, and we'll offer you more of the deal. I would really like to have you differ with this guy than this with others. And let's get them to pay. I can't afford, we cannot afford to keep absorbing this because the poor boards, and they're obviously not interested in this moment in contributing. So we need to find a way to show them what it costs and what they could get if they contribute. And if they go, let's probably be much more diplomatic and much better marketing if these people didn't have to pay. So if it's a charter, they don't have to pay, right? Although you can't let an average person on, and that's not necessarily right. So I think we just need to figure it out between now
And the charter could decide to do that with your charter. We could, we'll have to double check with some FTA rules on that. We'll double check.
And the charter only have to bring in one vote. Well, two, one standby and one to operate the vehicle.
I mean, at the end of the day, our job is to get as much streetcar service out of it.
I agree.
I don't care if they make it, I think some people have it, but our job is that we're not providing production. We're trying to provide transit service. So you need to be compensated for your time and trouble, and we need to sort this out.
I do know that any Board City folks are scheduling their businesses and restaurants and so forth to be open according to this
Of course, we have to do this.
Right, so they're planning on it
We have to
from
do it.
here on.
That's why we need to build
These
it.
next 4 visits. The first one, I mean, they had a trickle of people that somehow found Ybor City, and they were shocked that it was open, and a few stores that were open did
But,
make some money.
they'll tweet, they'll help people,
So the second group probably had a great time. They came back and shared wonderful things, and the third, fourth, fifth.
And I think we should have this conversation, maybe you should assume the way it is. If you get resistance, then we'll have to get, but we will look at it, because we've done it in nice way. But we'll figure this out.
I'm sure you will. Don't forget
And next month we'll have a better presentation.
the cruise ship on the 28th.
We're gonna figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
But we're definitely gonna have to do it. Even if we have to eat it, do what it is, we're gonna have to do it. But I'm gonna try to.
It certainly appears that way because a lot of the stores in Ybor are opening early with the intention. My first 5 cars that went past that, they get on at the Cumberland Avenue station by the aquarium there. They were packed to the max. I couldn't put another person
No,
in.
it's great PR, it's great,
Yeah.
it's what we want.
I had a station, a motorman at the station to assist people with boarding and buying tickets and things of that nature, but it went well.
And you can bet the biggest people see that happening. I mean, it's all good, it's all
Oh, no,
good.
yeah,
Just have
and
to-
they did ride all day. They had to report back to the ship at 6 p.m. And when they were just killing time, they were just riding, you know, they were just riding. Getting off down at, Whiting Street, walking around there, getting back on the car, going to, the Tampa Museum and places
I'd
like
like to transplant them, 100,000 of those people. It's okay, thank you, Denise.
that. Thank you.
All right, that was fun. Let's take up the different groups, we already done that. Sean, is there anything you wanted to add to that? Did you want this on the agenda, we covered it sufficiently?
Yes, we covered it sufficiently, just to make sure.
We'll make sure.
Just to make sure that it was brought to light how wonderful it was for the folks in Ybor City and downtown, other folks that opened up early.
Somebody
We're walking
said,
around.
yeah, somebody said you could go over the program, go to the top. So, yeah, no, I mean, equal people, everybody should be very business. It's just, we'll figure it out. Okay, compliance reports, do you have a question about the marketing report or the ridership? If not, is there any other business you and will come before us? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, go ahead.
The Rough Riders.
Understood, go ahead.
Hi, Steve Rosenstock, Senior Marketing and Communications Person. We had a request by the Rough Riders who normally do the St. Patty's Parade, and we usually do a streetcar hop. We lost the business last year due to no business. So they're offering to bring back the business to the streetcar in conjunction with the events manager at Channel Side Big Plaza. They're expecting 1,200 people to be part of this trolley hop, what they're calling this trolley hop. And in the past, 2 years ago, we had the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders had about 700 in ticket sales at $5 each, and it's about $35. They're offering proposals. What they would like from the streetcar is either to sponsor one of the levels that range from $500 and up. The 500 and the lowest sponsorship does include streetcar tickets. So it really doesn't make sense.
Not very big yet.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. The other option is they are looking for a discounted ticket. Again, they were 700 in ridership 2 years ago. Last year, they decided not to go on the streetcar, and this year they want to do it again.
Yeah.
And again, in conjunction with Channel Side Big Plaza.
Are they mostly stay more if they go?
Yeah, there is a parade in Ybor, but they are going to have 4 different locations where you have to check in, which so that they would have to take the streetcar, and the streetcar is a major part of this, obviously.
And this all happens with regular streetcars?
In the faithful disclosure, I'm on the Charlie Hop committee for the Rough Riders. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. Last year, we did not do channel side because the bars had closed, basically. Stumps had closed, the other one that used to be Bennigan's closed. So it wasn't anything with the streetcar itself, it was that there's no venue down there really. So this year, the committee decided, they're talking to some people down there and creating a venue, and they want to bring the streetcar back into the fold.
Good. Well, I don't know how you all feel, but how big of that would it take if we give the tickets half price?
Do we know what we did 2 years ago?
They were not, there was no discount. There was no discount. They
Right,
said-
and that's $5 is a lot, but, you know, one of the big criticisms is we let the rates get too high, and the rate. We might not have known that in hindsight, foresight, but in hindsight, I think they're all nice people, they're all part of our community. What do you guys think?
I'm fine with a discounted ticket.
If they buy 1,000 of them, you pay $2,500 in addition to what Russell would do. How do you feel about it?
I think if, based on the participation we've had in previous years, the discounted rate would still, the extra revenue coming in. Significant for what Steve is presenting is a request that we participate as sponsors. So if it is $2,500 recognized from fair revenue, and THS likes to participate at $700 level, the net is still $1,800.
No, this would be an in-kind sponsorship.
Oh, an in-kind
Yes.
sponsorship, okay.
It would be
There's
one.
not-
If not, maybe they're going to give you guys half price.
Okay, disregard.
Okay, what do you guys think? Ladies.
I'm going to abstain, I'm just making that.
Well, that's Mickey, what do you think?
I think anytime you can get opportunities for people to ride who normally wouldn't ride, when it is a special occasion, and like you said, the same situation we have when you have the cruise ships and you see a car full of people in the neighborhood and the businesses around, and those of us who work in the area and see a car full of people, that's worth its weight as far as I'm concerned, whatever we do to get those cars.
The pure value of full cars.
Exactly, just the perception, perception is reality, and if people are perceiving that it's being used on these occasions, then it's worth it. And I think you get a much more positive reaction when the car rolling around is empty during a special event like that. So I think it's nice to have it.
And you're not aware of it, but we were offering commissioners free rides for a year and a half, and now it's $250 if you go to a convention. So, okay, so you'd like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No, all in favor, say aye. Say nay. $250. Have a good time. Yes.
Just as an FYI, I do have some tickets for sale.
Yes, you did. And you can tell that you had nothing to do with this. All right, the other. Thank you very much.